speaking with the Director of Public Sector Projects for the CCSA. Her name is Kiesha Farnum. And we have started this series just to get more Jamaicans, more listeners, because we stream on the internet, so we're heard all across the world. And indeed, everybody has to understand who live on one dege planet. All of these movies on Netflix and everywhere else that takes us to Mars, a select few on a rocket that lands and they keep humanity alive. Well, the better of those movies, the spaceship always becomes taken over by something, but let's not go right there. Let's focus on the one Earth we have that is sufficient, it is adequate, and it has surplus, but only if we change some significant approaches that we have been practicing over the last century. So we'll get straight into it with Kiesha Farnum. Good morning, Kiesha.
Good morning, Raymond. How are you?
I am well. How are you doing?
I'm really good, really good. I love that intro. You know, there's no planet B.
There's no... See, now that is why you are the Director of Public Sector Projects, because instead of talking about aliens and Netflix, there's no planet B. I'm going to be rinsing that one all day. So we really want to thank you again, as I said, for joining us. And we're talking about how to become climate smart. So we're going to start right there, Kiesha. What makes a project a climate smart project, and what types of projects are climate smart?
So I think I want to preface what I'm about to describe as a climate smart project by saying, you know, a climate smart project, in short, is a project that addresses climate change. But I think for many persons, there's so much rhetoric around climate change and what climate change is. And there's naysayers, and then there are people who just don't quite understand the concept.
True.
So in very basic terms, climate change is the drastic changes of global and regional weather patterns that we've been seeing since the late 20th century onwards, that have been drastically increased by carbon dioxide produced by the use of fossil fuels. And I think to drive it home for people even more, we could think about it in the ways that it impacts individuals. So we mightn't understand the science behind it, and that's fine. But when we look at how it impacts our health, our ability to grow food, our housing, our safety, our work, when we look at the vulnerability of people who live in what is considered small island developing states. So for example, Jamaica, even though it's much bigger than a lot of the other Caribbean islands, it's still considered a small island developing state. And all the other Caribbean islands that face hurricanes year on year, that have gotten extensively worse year on year. We see that in the news. We know people who've been impacted. We know people who've been affected. We've seen the rise in sea level. We've seen the intrusion of salt water, where some communities have had to relocate, or it has impacted their farming. We've seen drought in this region too as well, but also in other regions of the world. And we're seeing more and more and more the impact of climate change on individuals and people.
Yes.
So with that being said, what is a climate smart project? So a climate smart project is an integrative, transformative approach that focuses on addressing climate change. Now, climate change is a very, very broad area, but it looks at developing systems and ways of conducting business that promote green and climate resilient practices, right? So does your project enhance or build resilience? Does it reduce emissions? Does it systematically consider the trade-off between productivity and adaptation and mitigation, right? Those are what are considered to be climate smart projects. So that now can cover a plethora of areas. If you think about it, climate impacts everything. We just said health, education, everything. But for CCSA and our focus as an organization, we focus on renewable energy. We focus on what we call 30 by 30 nature-based solutions, which include blue economy projects and climate smart agriculture. So looking at conservation of nature, right?
Yes.
And we also look at economic resilience through the creation of green jobs. So when we talk about climate smart projects, we're talking about projects that fit the description that I just gave, but we focus on projects within these three categories.
Right. And these categories, well, firstly, Kiesha, when you were giving the preface, you explained beautifully and appropriately that some people may be bothered that they don't understand the science behind what's causing the climate to, or what caused the climate to change and what is leading to climate departure. And that's fine. But when you make references of the blue economy as well, some people might be thinking that that's a bizarre concept, but it's a concept which most of us that grew up on Caribbean islands can relate to. We all saw the fisher folk going out, coming back with fish. What we never realize is that the average Caribbean citizen pays far less for freshly caught fish from the seas and oceans than other consumers across the world. So we already have a natural relationship with benefiting from the blue economy. So I just wanted to make that point to our listeners that everything Kiesha says is familiar, even if some of the terminology is not yet familiar. And one of the things we're doing with this segment and with this program is to make everybody conversant and familiar with the terms, because as she said, there's no planet B. No, a lot of these projects, we have some very brilliant entrepreneurs and scientists across the region, Kiesha. Many, however, don't have the capital to get it started, to scale it up, and to get it scoped properly. So this is where the CCSA come in. Now, how can projects become investment ready, and what even does investment readiness mean?
Yeah. Raymond, I just want to add to what you said about the blue economy, because and I am guilty of it myself as what we call a development professional, right? I've spent the last 18 years of my life using what we call development speak. So the blue economy is very much a development speak word. Yes. But just to elaborate on what you're talking about, it also includes things like tourism, which everybody's familiar with. It includes things like maritime transport, waste management, fisheries, which you mentioned, ocean-driven renewable energy, whether that's wind and offshore wind energy, solar energy, wave generation energy, ocean research and data collection. So the blue economy covers the full gamut of all the things that we as human beings can use the ocean for in a sustainable way, yes, in order to improve our livelihoods and have jobs, right?
Absolutely.
Going back to your question about what makes a good project or a ready
what makes
project.
A project investment ready?
What makes a project investment ready? So I think how I want to approach this is just to ask questions, right? So as a project holder, the first thing that you need to do is know your audience. So you're approaching somebody for money, and you need to understand, what does this person want in exchange for this money? What's driving this person in exchange for it? Is it a donor? Is it a philanthropist? Is it an impact investor? Is it a venture capitalist? And if you don't know those words, you should be Googling it. Mm-hmm. So as a project holder, Google should be your friend, right? And you need to understand what are their main interests, what are their main goals. Because even though your project might be amazing and your idea is the most amazing idea, there is no such thing as free money. Even when it comes to grant money, this person is giving you this money because they have an intention towards this money too as well. So if you understand what their intention is, you could then craft your project where you meet their goals and your goals, right? So I think that's the first overarching thing that you need to consider when you're looking at applying for project funding. The next thing would be that you need to have a very sound project description, a justification, and a business case. So what does that mean? What are the key issues that your project is addressing? Why is it important in this context, right? So for example, what is the legislative or regulatory environment in which you're operating and you're trying to operationalize this business? You should understand that. What applies in Jamaica is not the same as what applies in Barbados. It's not the same as what applies in Grenada, right? There's a different regulatory environment in different places. Different permits need to be, but depending on the type of project, you need to get permits, get certain permissions, etc. Who is going to buy your products? You should be able to identify that. Who's my customer, right? And why are they going to buy my product? Sometimes we have people who have amazing ideas, and it's an amazing idea, but there is no customer. There's nobody. Yes, it solves a problem, but it doesn't solve a problem that people are willing to do something about, right? So who's going to access this product or service? Who are your primary stakeholders? You should be able to identify communities, companies, government. Is it all of them, right?
Yes.
What are the commitments that your country has made towards the UN development goals? So you need to familiarize yourself, particularly if you're looking for projects within the climate space. You have to familiarize yourself with what are the UN development goals.
Right.
Because it's not only just grants and donors who are looking at that, but investors who are private sector investors are also now focusing on these, because this is part of their commitment as businesses to reduce their carbon footprint. So this has now become important to them. So you need to understand that.
That aspect of the language is fully in vogue, in other words, because if private sector entities on their own are trying to reduce their own carbon footprint to to rescue planet A, then they are also streamlined against trying to get certain tax and tariff incentives, and so too are larger corporations and consumers. So that part of it, I just want to strengthen and reiterate what you've said, Kiesha. And as you said, Google has to become the best friend of somebody who has a project that they believe is climate smart and wants to become investment ready.
Exactly. And I would say too, you need to understand how your product stands in juxtaposition to what else is out there. So we had done a call for projects. We were Earthshot nominators. And one of the questions, which I was so surprised that a lot of people answered, I don't know to, was, is my product or service already being offered? Is somebody else doing what I'm doing? And I'm like, that should never be something that you say, I don't know to. You should know, because what that does is, one, you understand what your market share is, but you also can learn from other people's experience. There's nothing that says that you can't replicate something that somebody else is doing, but you can then learn from their experiences, and then you understand. It means that you understand the landscape in which you're trying to operate.
Right.
And then you have the nuts and bolts, Raymond. What type of funding are you looking for? And I think this is also an area of deficit. So is it that you're looking for equity? Are you willing to sell shares in the company that you're trying to form? Are you looking for debt? Do you want to borrow? What will those terms and conditions look like for you? Are you looking for a hybrid of that, which is called mezzanine? So are you looking for debt and equity financing? Are you looking for an angel investor or a seed funding startup capital, which would be provided in exchange for convertible debt or ownership equity later on, right? So you need to understand the different types of financing that you're looking for. And then finally, you need to be able to show what your timelines for execution is, what your budget is, what your return of investment and deliverables are, and what the project impact is going to be. Yeah? So, there's a lot more, there's more to that, but I know we don't have a lot of time.
No, we don't have a lot of time, but what I will say to our listeners is that there is, for example, on the and by the way, we keep saying CCSA. So let me fix that and remind our listeners that CCSA is a Caribbean Climate. I keep saying CCSA and I forgot. Help me out here, Kiesha. Climate-Smart Accelerator. All right, I just had to go to the back of the class now. So the point I wanted to make, though, to our listeners is that if you go on the CCSA website and you select media, now this is an interesting thing about your website I want to commend you guys for. Once you select media, even if you are just surfing the website, they have a brilliant, skip the news. The news is for the rest of us. Go to the Knowledge Hub. Because on the CCSA website, Knowledge Hub, you can learn at your own pace a lot of the larger concepts that might be tricky to grasp in a 10-minute interview. So I want to use the opportunity to say to our listeners, go to caribbeanaccelerator.org, and you will find things about food security, how to, what does the concept of net zero mean, and what does getting to net zero by 2050 incorporates, and some excellent things on their website. But for the purposes of today's conversation with Kiesha Farnum, Director of Public Sector Projects at CCSA, Kiesha, help us to understand now some of the actual facilitation services that the CCSA does for persons who have done their research, know their project, know the area that their project fits in, but now are ready to be guided by CCSA.
So Raymond, just to end your last statement on our Knowledge Hub, coming to the Knowledge Hub, and we have to thank our digital impact strategist, Janelle Findlay, for our website and its framework. But coming to that Knowledge Hub would also be eventually courses that we're working on that persons will be able to take. So not just only things that you could read, but courses that you would be able to go through, because we realize that there is need for capacity building within that space. So
Absolutely.
Look out for that. That is coming. In terms of the process, so we are primarily a matchmaking facility. So we do not provide funds directly to project owners. I like to think of us as a conduit between private sector, public sector, and funding sources, right?
Right.
So the matchmaking of projects to investors involves us evaluating the project. So you send us your project via the portal, which is also on our website, www.caribbeanaccelerator.org. That's www.caribbeanaccelerator.org. And there, the projects are evaluated based on stage of readiness, relevance, innovation, scalability, replicability, the quality of your methodology, your stakeholder support, your investment type, your committed investment.
Wait, Kiesha,
of your business.
Just hold there for a bit for me. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we come back and wrap up with you for a few more minutes. Please.
Newstalk 93 FM. Heard everywhere.
Welcome back, listeners. Continue our discussion with Director of Public Sector Projects at the CCSA, Kiesha Farnum. Kiesha?
Yes.
Thank you for staying with us. You were just talking to us about the matchmaking process.
Right. So I would have gone through all the things that your project would have been evaluated against. And so the matchmaking process basically happens against three mechanisms. One is the one-on-one matching. So we evaluate the projects, and that's part of an ongoing process that's always happening. And if there is an immediate match, we put the projects in direct contact with the funding source. Then two other mechanisms that we use is the investor forum. And this is a tri-annual, so 3 times for the year, virtual forum where we bring diverse international panel of high-level impact investors to the table. And the aim of that is pairing these investments with investment-ready projects and moving that forward. But it also creates a space for anyone, because anyone can attend. It's completely free of charge. You just have to sign in. We have one coming up on the 6th of September, and it's actually focused on the blue economy. But it allows other project holders to understand what investors are looking for. And it also allows investors who are out there to see that, there are other investors who are interested in the region and that the region is open for business.
Right.
After that public investor forum, there is a direct matching of the projects that we will feature of course, featured at a very high level, but the projects that are featured are then matched directly with those investors, and those investors have an opportunity to take those projects forward. And then finally, the Financial Advisory Committee. This is made up of chief executives of the regional financial institutions, so commercial banks, the multilateral development banks, and insurance companies. We have 9 executives so far, and we're looking at bringing on executives that represent the Dutch Caribbean as well. And the objective of that is for projects that are looking for financial support that can be provided by commercial banks and the multilateral development banks, right? So these projects are given directly to these executives at this level, and we leverage their experience and professional networks to improve access to financing and to basically create that enabling environment that is transformative to the region. So we're looking at how we can look not only at funding from outside, but also private sector funding from within the region.
Okay. Well, listen, the final question before I go to another comment coming from a listener. Are there any current call for projects, Kiesha?
There is. So right now we have a call for Blue Economy projects. We would have talked at length about what is the Blue Economy, but what we're looking for is those projects to feature at the same investor forum that I would have just mentioned, September 6th, 2020. The call for project, the deadline is the 22nd of August. We've extended the deadline. Initially it was August 5th, and now we've extended it to August 22nd. And you can go to our website, www.caribbeanaccelerator.org, and you will see the call for projects there. It describes what is the Blue Economy, what are the types of projects that fall under the Blue Economy, what are the cross-cutting themes that we're looking at, how we evaluate the projects, and what we're going to be using the projects that you're sending through for. So that information is available on our website.
It's interesting because when we were speaking about the, as you said, the development, speak about Blue Economy, listeners, the best place to get a one-stop quick class on the Blue Economy is at www.caribbeanaccelerator.org. Trust and believe. But before we go, Kiesha, the question from the listener. I heard and understood what she said, and I get the impression you guys are trying to make it easy, but make it easy for us to understand. But as someone who has shopped around for investment for projects, it really is not that easy. No, I'm assuming, because of what we're talking about, that this is someone who attempted with a project based in the sphere of what we're speaking about, but not necessarily based on how the question is written. So since it was posed during your interview, Kiesha, I'll just give you an opportunity again to go through the broad strokes as to how an individual knows or can do some self-check on their project proposal before they go forward to try and get investments on a project that may really not be investment ready.
Yeah, well, it isn't easier. It's not meant to be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy, right? And nothing about this space that we're working in is easy. That's the truth. So I think, first of all, thinking that it is going to be easy or that people are immediately going to understand this pressing need that you've identified, that's not the case, right? In terms of the things that I would have highlighted, know your audience, have a good project description and a justification, your or business case, know the environment that you're operating in. So understand the regulatory, the legislative environment that you're operating in. Know who your customers are. Know who your stakeholders are. Understand the NDCs and how they apply to your project. Make sure that you incorporate cross-cutting teams. So look at gender, look at inclusivity. Make sure that you're not just only talking to one audience. Make sure that you understand what the value of your project is, the type of how much you require in terms of investment and the type. So understand the different types of investment that you're looking for. Have clear timelines in terms of your project execution. Have your budget in place. know your return of investment if it's a business model that you're trying to get funding for, and understand your project impact.
All right. Thank you very much, Kiesha. Kiesha, you got the win today. So we will send your gold medal through the mail because when you reiterated, it's not meant to be easy. I don't know this assumption that easy means it's going to be the way to go. I respect the directness. It's not meant to be easy.
Oh. What we're doing isn't easy either. Working at the CCSA, we have a beautiful work environment. We have an amazing team that is led by Raquel Moses, our CEO.
Yes.
But the work that we are doing is not easy.
Well, you said it at the start. There's no planet B, so we have to work hard to save planet A.
Exactly. Raymond, thank you so much for facilitating this conversation.
And thank you, Kiesha. Yeah, man, enjoy the rest of your day. So, listeners, that was Kiesha Farnum, Director of Public Sector Projects at the Caribbean Climate-Smart Accelerator. And that website, again, www.caribbeanaccelerator.org. Spend some time reviewing it. It's worth the visit.